Hello, friends. This is Jai Cross with the 7 Sacred Directions. Today we honor the direction of the north and the element of earth. This will complete a section of this program because north is the last of the cardinal directions and the last of the elements that we'll deal with, that we'll honor, that we'll recognize, that we'll remember. We've been walking a circle, a medicine circle, completing the sacred hoop. And today, we complete at least one part of that journey. So we started with the east, associated with the element of air. And in terms of a day, the east is associated with morning. And then we went to south, the element of fire. Here, the association in a day is noon, the heat of the day. And then we move to west and water, where the association is afternoon. Now we move into north and night. And these associations in terms of other measures of time hold true as well. If we look at it in terms of seasons, the east is spring, the south is summer, the west is autumn, and the north is winter. Again, a completion of a single revolution, of a single cycle. If we view the directions in terms of a human life, then the east is associated with infancy, the south with childhood, the west with adulthood, and the north with elderhood. Again, a progression, a completion in the north, which allows for another cycle, another circle to begin again in the east. The circle is a very important spiritual symbol. It's found in ceremonial use throughout the world, and I'm sure that many of you have sat in many different types of circles, where everyone is equidistant around a center point. It's interesting for us as individuals to try to figure out, what is our center point? What do we revolve around? What do we orbit? What do we serve? I want to share a quote from a Native American medicine man, Hihaka Sapa. You may know him by his anglicized name, Black Elk. Black Elk was a Dakota medicine man, a spiritual man, a healer. Remarkable history to this man. He was related to the great Sioux chief Crazy Horse. He personally knew Sitting Bull and Red Cloud. He was actually present at the Battle of the Greasy Grass, which is commonly known as the Battle of the Little Bighorn, Custer's last stand. Later in life, but still as a young man, he toured with Buffalo Bill's Wild West show, visited Europe, visited many different countries, and then came back to live the reservation life at Pine Ridge. He was also present at the massacre of Wounded Knee. So this man's life spread over many different decades of changing times for his people. He was a visionary, and his visions gave his people a sense of purpose amidst those changing conditions. So I want to read a brief section to you from his autobiography. It was actually dictated to Flaming Rainbow around 1930. You have noticed that everything an Indian does is in a circle. And that is because the power of the world always works in circles, and everything tries to be round. In the old days when we were a strong and happy people, All our power came to us from the sacred hoop of the nation. And so long as the hoop was unbroken, the people flourished. The flowering tree was the living center of the hoop, and the circle of the four quarters nourished it. The east gave peace and light. The south gave warmth. The west gave rain, and the north, with its cold and mighty wind, gave strength and endurance. This knowledge came to us from the outer world with our religion. Everything the power of the world does is done in a circle. The sky is round, and I have heard that the earth is round like a ball, and so are all the stars. The wind, in its greatest power, whirls. Birds make their nests in circles, for theirs is the same religion as ours. The sun comes forth and goes down again in a circle. The moon does the same, and both are round. Even the seasons form a great circle in their changing, and always come back again to where they were. The life of a man is a circle from childhood to childhood, and so it is in everything where power moves. Our teepees were round like the nest of birds, and these were always set in a circle, the nation's hoop, a nest of many nests, where the Great Spirit meant for us to hatch our children. Very wise words. Very wise. In an upcoming show, we will cast the ceremonial circle. We'll honor all the directions, the potencies and powers of the earth, the energies and entities of the sky, and the seventh direction, the place within, the place of source. But that will wait. For right now, let's do a grounding to connect ourselves with ourselves, perhaps a little more deeply than we've been through the previous hours of this day. So let's close our eyes, bring our energy internal, letting go of any pulls, any attachments, any energetic linkages we may have to external events. Settling in. And use the breath to draw you in still deeper. Even though I'm speaking, you really don't need thought to do this. Simply feel the gentle back and forth movement of the belly with the respiration. And if it helps, loosen any restrictive clothing, make any movements you might need to become more comfortable, to allow you to sink yet more deeply. From this place of silence and stillness, I ask you to open your power of imagination. Recall a favorite tree, a tree that you have a personal association with, that you've already developed a relationship with. One particular tree. Could be a tree you climbed in childhood. It could be a tree that gave you fruit. It could be a tree that you've admired, maybe something by your workplace, near where you live, whatever. But bring that tree to mind. See it in your mind's eye. And make it real by using your senses. Perhaps you smell the fragrance of the flowers of that tree, or its sap, or maybe if you crushed its needles or leaves, there would be a particular odor. Feel the bark of that tree, smooth or rough, whatever texture, or maybe a newly formed branch. And see the different parts in detail. Recreate them in your mind. Perhaps you hear the wind moving through the leaves or needles of this tree. Perhaps there are birds nesting. You hear their song. Make it real. Give it life. And now imagine yourself standing before the trunk of this tree and ask your friend for permission to merge some of your energy with some of its energy, to share yourself with the tree. Once this has been granted, move some of your spirit into that tree. Now this might take the form of you actually seeing yourself step forward and move your body in the tree. Or it might take the form where you see yourself still standing outside, but some of your energy body moves into the tree. Whichever feels right and appropriate to you. Once inside that friend's body, let's just be silent for a few moments and sense what this world is like, what this place is like. One thing that I'm sensing is a movement. It goes upward and it goes downward. Let's follow that downward impulse that is in each tree. So allowing your spirit to move down inside the trunk into a large root and progressively outwards as that root becomes smaller and smaller. Feel yourself carried along as though you're being transported in the tree's circulatory system until you're out at the very tip of the root where the root hairs exist. And now feel the water and the nutrients that the tree absorbs through those root hairs moving in to its body, into that root. And allow yourself to be carried along in that stream of water, that nourishing flow of life. So now we're moving from the root tip back up the root in reverse from how we got here. Up into the trunk. Out into a branch. Branch getting smaller and smaller. And then perhaps out into a needle or a leaf, or if the tree is leafless, out into the end of a branchlet. Feeling the heartbeat of your friend. And now bring your attention back to that place in the trunk where you first entered. Pull all your energy back and either step out of the trunk or pull that part of you that was in the trunk back out. So that you see the tree again. You're standing in front of its trunk. And thank your friend for this sharing, this opening to you. Thank your friend for allowing you to ground in a different way, to feel the flow of the earth move through you in a different way. Now bring the attention back to the belly, fully incarnated again, bringing all your energy back home. Feel your own pulse of light. That tidal movement of respiration in and out. Perhaps moving some of the larger muscles. Make sure that you're all the way back, maybe wiggling fingers and toes. Come back to that sense that you're incarnated in a human body in a particular place at a particular time. Then as you're ready, slowly opening the eyes. I find trees to be very easy to connect to. Their energy is receptive to human energy. And so it's fairly easy to do a merging or a blending of energies or of spirits with trees. And I encourage you to investigate this a little more on your own if you haven't already. The North is many things. One of the associations is that our ancestors are allied with the direction of the North. Now, I want to give a little species perspective right now because it's so easy for us humans. We're so adaptable. It's so easy for us to narrow things down until all of our attention, all of our focus is on the issue at hand, the circumstances that we're living in, the particulars of our lives. Sometimes it's enlivening and definitely enlightening to open that perspective up, to see a much larger picture, to gain a different perspective. So here's a species perspective, the place of our race, of humanity on planet Earth. You may have heard something similar to this analogy already, but here goes. I'm going to compare the history of planet Earth and humanity's place on it to a single calendar year. I know that when I'm reading books, maybe about dinosaurs, and they say, oh, back in the Jurassic, 165 million years ago, it registers mentally that that's a long time ago. But the truth is, our brains are not designed to deal with such large periods of time. Of course, we can write the number out. And of course, we can speak it, and so it sounds like we understand it. But something that large is really mind-boggling. So if we break it down in terms of something more familiar, it actually makes it easier for us to understand. So let's say that the Earth came into existence, came into form on January 1st of this imaginary year. Well, a commonly used number is humans evolved in recognizably human form about 20 million years ago. And again, that sounds like a long, long time ago. But of course, in comparison to the history of this planet, it's not very long at all. So in terms of our year calendar, humans came into existence on the last day of that year And actually, in the evening of the last day of that year, around 8 p.m. So fairly recent arrivals. And of course, for most of the time of the existence of humanity, and this is also true of modern humans, Homo sapiens variety sapiens, our ancestors lived in very close association with the earth and the elements. They had a kinship with their environment that it's hard for us to appreciate today, since we run so much of our energy through our minds. So much of our attention is focused on symbols instead of realities. In some senses, our ancestors were less developed than we are. And in other ways, they were much more evolved. They were much more in touch with the things of their environment. So our ancestors, throughout most of those last millennia of development, lived in that close association. They were getting language. There were some abstractions. If they had a religion, that religion would have been called shamanism, where usually a person speaks for the tribe and contacts the spirits on their behalf, or animism, where everything in the environment is seen to be alive. And of course, these aren't exclusive. Many cultures practice both. It was just their way of life. It wasn't a separate thing. It was just the way they related to themselves, to their people, and to their environment. So this is our background. This is sort of hardwired into us, because for many millions of years, that was our cultural heritage. Cities are a very recent addition. I like using the number 10,000 years ago cities came into existence. And there are a couple of earlier examples, but really only a couple around the planet. And certainly 10,000 years ago, most people, the great majority, over 99% of humans were not living in an urban environment. So again, a very recent development. And if we take that number 10,000 years ago on our calendar, that would have been on the last day, at night, almost midnight. In fact, 7.2 seconds before midnight. So again, the idea here is it's a very recent occurrence. We haven't really had much time to figure out if we're doing the city thing right or not, because it's still a novelty. There's a lot of concern about global warming these days. We're upsetting the climatic patterns. The evidence is in. We definitely seem to be having an effect, a catastrophic effect at times, on natural weather patterns. And oftentimes these are related to our patterns of energy consumption and transportation. Well, let's go back to the development of railroads. A couple of hundred years ago, and of course right after that, cars. Well, railroads have only been around on our yearly calendar for the last 1/7 of a second. So here we're down to measuring in tenths of a second versus the enormity of an entire year. Again, the point here is that these are new things. Our most recent ancestors hadn't fully settled into this new environment because our species hasn't settled in. Our species was settled in to living naturally in nature, without a lot of machinery, without a lot of symbols. So in a very real way, that is our cultural heritage. And when we look back to the ancestors, it's instructive to look past a lot more than just several generations, to look way back to get the big view. So when we honor the ancestors, we're honoring way back as well as more recent people we might have known by name. The North, in addition to being the place of ancestors, is the place of completion. And I mentioned this earlier, and so nighttime, winter, elderhood, going around that circle and coming to the end of a cycle. But the beautiful thing about a circle is that oftentimes when one cycle is over, another begins. And so death can lead to renewal and rebirth. The North is also the place of dreaming, of visioning. And of course, many times these qualities are associated with elderhood. It's the elders, it's the experienced members of the tribes, the clans, the groups who are looked to for vision, for perspective. Not only have they had a lot of experiences during their lives, but they're at that nearing completion stage where death appears closer. Now, of course, death can pop out at any time to claim us, to call us back home. But the elders seem to have a greater sense of its nearness. And so with that perspective, they tend to be less concerned with the immediate things, the mundane things, the details of daily life, which opens them up to an expanded viewpoint, to vision. One of the animals commonly associated with the North is owl. Many different cultures respect the owl. And there are a lot of reasons for this. Of course, it's a night hunter, and owls have a unique arrangement of their feathers which allows them to fly in very silently at night. And so they appear out of the blackness. They appear out of the darkness. And being predators, they're associated with death. So many cultures see owl as an embodiment of wisdom and also having something to do with death. In the area I live in, northern New Mexico, our native people here are the Pueblo people. In most of those Pueblo cultures, the owl is seen as a bringer of death. And so on prayer rattles, on different ceremonial costumes, they do not use owl feathers. That is a strong taboo because that would signal that you're inviting death in. Now, my view is that owl teaches us not to be afraid of death because all the things we have, including our lives, are only here on loan. We can't really claim these in a lasting way. Within 50 years, I'm not going to be here in this form. Can't say with any certainty where my spirit's going to be, but I am pretty sure it's not going to be lodged in this body. Because these containers, these forms, are temporary. So I actually look on death and, by association, owl, as allies, because they remind me of the preciousness of life. They encourage me to live fully, to express myself fully, while there's still time. And that doesn't cause me anxiety. That seems like a natural thing to me, one that I actually embrace. The archangel associated with the North is Uriel. That word, that name means God is my light. And as elders get close to completing that cycle, a lot of times our attention is drawn back to the light, to the meaning behind the expression, to the substance of things, which involves that larger perspective. The element associated with the North is the element of earth. And right here I need to make a distinction between elemental earth and planetary earth. So Mother Earth is planetary Earth, and the qualities associated with her are usually assigned to planetary Earth, although sometimes there's overlap. So the compassion of the mother, the fertility of the soil. These things are typically associated with Mother Earth, with the planet Earth, which is our topic of discussion next month. So we'll get to that. And of course, if you've missed any of the earlier elements and directions, these are all archived. You can access them through Human Spirit Radio's site or my website at jaycross.com. Those are there for your listening and viewing convenience. So elemental earth has to do with form, with substance, with expression. Right now, just lifting my eyes a little bit, I'm looking out on the southern Rocky Mountains. It's a beautiful view. A lot of clouds in the sky, some white, some gray on those clouds, which is an interesting mirroring of the mountains because the mountains are in shadow and yet the snow-capped peaks are in full sun. So there's really nice color contrast going on out there. The mountains seem to have a gentle slope from this distance, although I can see some individual trees outlined on the horizon, and then the nearer slopes, I've got pinon and juniper. I can make those out fairly distinctly. I'm seeing the colors, I'm seeing the shapes, I'm seeing the shadows, I'm seeing the soil, I'm seeing the understory. The closer I come in, see more grasses, a lot more detail. Well, all these things I've been talking about involve elemental earth because they're things of form. And so our senses are designed in large part to pick up elemental earth, the smells, the tastes, the touch, the sounds that these different forms give off. So beauty is definitely an aspect of elemental earth. Beauty and diversity and creativity. So now we're kind of lapping back into that planetary earth. As I said, there's not a clear, distinctive line between them, but these are different energies. I get a different feeling when I open to elemental earth in the north than I do when I open to Mother Earth and all the creative powers there. Elemental earth has the qualities of solidity, of stability, strength. Remember, Black Elk was talking about how the north wind made the people strong. It helped them to discover ways to endure. So, north brings out that vigor of planetary earth that is lodged within each of us. And of course, the aspect of elemental earth that is closest to all of us is our physical forms, our physiques. Physicality is an expression of the north and of earth. It's very interesting, the relationship people have with their bodies. In a very real sense, this is our only possession, even though, as I've said, it's only on loan, but we've got use of it for a while. I work with some people who resent their bodies, who feel that their bodies have betrayed them. There's one woman in particular, a good friend of mine, who had a stroke 7.5 years ago now, which she's never fully come to terms with. She's never been able to find a level of acceptance around her new condition, her changed condition. This woman used to be a very, very talented craftsperson. She was a potter, she was a jeweler, she worked with a lot of different media, and very skillfully. Those things are not available to her anymore. And in a way, she berates herself because she can't do the things that used to give her so much joy. So her relationship to her body is not very healthy. And this is a woman who still possesses remarkable talents, remarkable strengths, remarkable resources. She's a healer. And I'll see her at gatherings moving her hands in particular ways. And I know she's dispelling negativity that come up in healings, that people are releasing because they want to move past it, because they no longer want to carry that burden. And she's very effective in this, just doing simple hand motions and focusing her energy, giving that energy back, the energy that's been dispelled, that's been released, giving it back so it can be composted, so it can be used for more life-affirming projects. Remarkable conversationalist. She has stories from a very adventurous life, and yet she resents her body every day. Boy, that's a big burden to take on. Now, of course, most of us aren't afflicted to that degree. And yet many people that I work with have settled into unnatural patterns of relating to their physical form. I got a copy of People recently. I got it for airline miles, so I didn't have to pay anything. And I got it in Spanish. So it's a good way for me to practice Spanish. I like reading some light stuff in Spanish occasionally, kind of keep up on the slang, see the different ways people have of expressing themselves. But one thing that amazes me with People is that every issue, it seems like half the pages are dedicated to trying to sell products that have something to do with the body, and especially with the appearance. So there are different things for the hair, there's shampoos and conditioners and colorizers and moisturizers and just all sorts of things. There are things for the eyebrows. There are things for all sorts of things for the skin, for the teeth, for to cause hair to grow where you don't want hair, where you do want hair, to remove hair from other places where you don't want hair. And it's just amazing to me, the variety of products. And the typical ad contains a picture of a very vivacious person, someone in the prime of life, somebody real sexy or outgoing. You can just sense the vigor of this person. And so, of course, the insinuation is you buy this product and you're going to share in that energy and that sense of well-being. Everything's going to be fixed. All you got to do is buy this tube, this container, this bottle, whatever it is that's being sold. Obviously to me at least, our society is somewhat preoccupied with external appearances. We want to present ourselves in an acceptable way. In fact, in a way that's going to provoke admiration. But the emphasis is on appearances. What we look like more than what we really are. This is also reflected in our society's addiction to physical substances and things. A lot of people have addictions to drugs, to alcohol, to tobacco, to coffee, to food itself, to compulsive spending, compulsive gambling, to things. Even people without addictions often suffer from an overabundance in their life because there's so much programming about you are successful if you live in a large house, if you have multiple vehicles, if you have expensive clothes, if you go to classy restaurants. It's hard to escape from that stuff. Even if we wean ourselves from a couple of those lines, there might be others that are still playing in the background because the advertising campaign is so pervasive. And these things are so rooted in the culture that we live in. And it's easy to go blind to these, to see how widespread they are and how prevalent they might be in our own lifestyles. And that's true of me as well. However, I tend to measure abundance by how I and others are doing internally. To me, abundance implies well-being, health, wholeness. I have good physical health, so there's a lot of abundance right there. Doesn't matter how much I have in my pocket, what my portfolio looks like. I'm very appreciative for the small things in life. And since my attention is often on those small things, I go through my days filled with gratitude. Expressing that gratitude in small ways, making little tobacco offerings here and there. I just recently returned from a trip to California. I had a retreat out there. And I went through 3 pouches of tobacco because I was just so happy, so thrilled to see so many different things. I was camping in the mountains, I was hiking on the mesas, I was visiting ancient indigenous sites. There were just so many good things out there. Yet I realize that many people don't even notice those good things. So the encouragement is to pay attention to those things that light you up. It might just be a stream flowing by or watching the clouds overhead or the interplay of light and shadow. But pay attention to those and give them their due by feeling your appreciation, perhaps expressing it in a small way with a tobacco offering, an offering of cornmeal, maybe just a few words. Maybe you see a tree that you admire, and you just send it some good energy. Thankful that it's sharing its beauty. It's sharing some of itself with you. Then that feeling of abundance will become more and more a part of your life. Another way I like to connect with abundance is through food blessing. I was raised in a family that had a formula food blessing, just a few words that were routinely spoken whenever we sat down to eat. Same words over and over. There didn't seem to be a whole lot of enthusiasm to those words, and it didn't seem very heartfelt either. It was just a prerequisite for the meal. Mine's a little different, because with my food blessing, I try to awaken a deeper sense of being. And it only involves 3 breaths, so it's pretty quick. So let's go through it. Plate of food before me, I place my hands over it. And the first breath is an inhale into the heart chakra so that I'm anchoring myself there, so I'm coming from that place. And on the exhale, I send blessing energy through my hands into the food. It might seem a little backwards, but I'm blessing the food with my energy first. So let's just do that a couple of times. Inhale into the heart and exhale a blessing out to imagine food before you. Doesn't that feel good? Opening your heart and using it to express gratitude. It's a very centering breath. Brings you fully present. Now on the next breath, I imagine the physical energy that food contains, the physical nourishment, moving down, entering my root chakra at the base of my spine and moving up to my crown, inside my head. And that's all on the inhale. The exhale distributes that energy. Essentially, you're opening physically to receive the blessing, the physical nourishment contained in the food, sends it throughout the entire body. And so on the exhale, you're making contact with all the different parts of the body. And it's a very fluid breath. It's not forced. It's not contrived. It's natural. So let's do that a couple of times. Imagining that food in front of you, on the inhale, bringing its physical energy down through your root up to the crown, and on the exhale, distributing it throughout the entire physical form. Again, a very centering breath. It brings us back home. It brings us present in our physical form, in our temple. Now, the third and last breath brings us present with our energetic body. And that, for most people, extends about a foot out from our physical being. Here, the inhale brings that energetic, that dreaming energy contained in the food up above our crowns, and then the exhale spreads it all through. I actually do a swirling motion in my imagination with that breath. So let's do that a couple of times. Inhale up above the crown, exhale down through the energy body. Again, a good way to bring yourself present, because a lot of times people walk around unaware of their energy body. They take on the energy of other people. They allow other people to take their energy without even noticing it. So many people at the end of the day are completely depleted because of these unnatural and unwarranted energetic reactions. The more consciousness you bring to your energy body, the more responsive it will be to your wishes. So again, good way to plug in. Very quick review. This is just 3 breaths. It'll help you open your heart, connect with your physical body, connect with your energetic body, and bless your food at the same time. So a good thing to do. When I'm not fasting, I tend to eat 3 meals a day. So 3 times a day, it's sort of programmed in. I'm going to have reminders that bring me into presence in my heart, in my physical body, and in my energy body. Well, there are lots of ways to get in touch with elemental earth. Blessing food is one. One of my favorites this time of year is working in the garden. Although it's really hard to call it working because I'm mostly out there playing. I take the gloves off. I break up the clods of soil with my hands. I'm feeling the earth. I'm merging with the earth. I'm allying with the earth. And for me, in springtime, the starting of planting, that's a time of ceremony. Time when I'm out there with my tobacco, with my cornmeal, giving up offerings, asking the spirit of the land to cooperate with me. Let's do a good thing here. Let's ally, let's partner our different resources to make this garden into a place of abundance. To make this garden into a vital center which is going to nourish me, my family, my friends. Make this garden into a place of worship, into a place of connection. A lot of times doing these little add-ons doesn't take much time. 3 breaths for a food blessing, little cornmeal offering around the garden, and yet it sets a tone. It awakens a vibration that encourages us to go deeply in our tasks. Whether it's eating food, working in the garden, mowing grass, raking leaves, whatever kind of outside chores might be involved and might serve as means to connect you with elemental earth. So instead of just rotely doing these tasks, you're involving your being in them. You're using them as exercises in staying present, in coming awake, and fully participating in your humanity while you do the chores. Another way of connecting with Earth, this is one of my favorites, is dance. By dance, I don't mean put on the iPod. Without music, set aside maybe 10 or 15 minutes. If you can do this outside, great. If your living situation is such that, well, people might look at you a little funny, that's fine. Do it inside. It doesn't matter that much. But for me, it's easier to connect if I'm out of doors. And I have that opportunity where I live. So set aside 10 or 15 minutes when you're not going to be disturbed. And express yourself through physical movements. What you're expressing is just the joy of being alive, of being incarnated in this body. And even my friend who's confined to a wheelchair, she could still do some movements if she wanted to. She could still honor elemental earth in that way. And it could be that it starts out as a dance to earth, but then includes other elements as well. It might be a breeze arises, and so you want to honor that breeze by moving to it, to the sound of it, to the feel of it. It could be that the sun's shining. Part of your dance is honoring the sun, that energy that's coming down, the energy of life, the purification that fire offers. Could be that you're dancing near a place of water. So your movements start to include some of that fluidity, that expressiveness of water, the depth that water encourages us to reach. Could be that some animal spirit appears in your mind, and your movements start to mimic a big cat, or an owl, or a coyote, whatever creature occurs to you. So you're channeling some of their energy. What would it feel like to be in their skin, to be doing their dance? 10 or 15 minutes has the potential to take you to a really good place. Because so much of us spend our time upstairs in the library, reviewing the manuscripts, listening to the same voices and the same words over and over again. Can get kind of dull. So open it up a little bit. Use your connection to the elements to bring some more life in, to bring some more awareness in. To wake up and realize, wow, here I am in human form on planet Earth. I've been granted another day of existence. Hallelujah. I'm going to make the most of it. I'm going to have some fun. I'm going to do some things that nourish me and that express my gratitude for all the opportunities I've been gifted with. Good stuff. As you open your senses and as you honor the element of earth, you may find yourself being drawn to particular places. It could be that there's something of a magnetic field that reveals itself to you. Different places where power is concentrated. I'm going to speak more about this next time when we're talking about planetary Earth, Mother Earth, nourishing Earth, goddess energy. But just note that if you start to open your senses, there might be some things, some signals, some messages that start to come through that are worth your attention. More on that next time. I was in Hopi land recently, the sacred mesas out there, and many tribal people, many traditional people feel that the Hopi are a tribe that has been gifted with a rarefied type of spirit, and that their holy people and their rituals have an effect on the entire planet, that have an effect on all of us as residents on that planet. Some people feel that if the Hopi stop singing songs to the sun, the morning sun, to rise up, things could collapse. So they've taken on a responsibility for the human race that extends far beyond their own tribe. And while I was out there, I was talking to a potter, and she showed me a little bowl that she'd made. It has two images inside of it. One is of a corn plant. It's recognizable. And the neat thing about this bowl is that the images are in fours. She explained to me that the elements, the directions are very strong in all of her work. And I asked, well, what's that smaller image on the side? I recognize the corn, but what's the little one? She said, oh, that's the spirit of corn. Again, the parts are arranged in fours, but a much different image. So I asked, well, how would you use this prayer bowl? And she said, oh, as you pray to the elements, you put something in to represent the element. And when you get to 4, you empty it out. So it's ready to be used again. So it's ready to start over. Just like in the cycle, going from east to south to west to north. You complete one cycle, one circle, to make ready for the next. So I got some Chinese checkers, in part because they seemed to be about the right size, and in part because they were handy. My yellow Chinese checker represents air and east. And so when I do a prayer or an offering to the east, I put that yellow marker in the bowl. I have a red Chinese checker for south and fire. And it could be I'm singing a song to the morning sun on its rise, expressing my gratitude to it. Could be I'm doing a fire ceremony. And it might be something where I release old obstacles, asking for the purification blessing of fire. After I did something like that, I put the red marker in the bowl. I have a blue one to symbolize west and water. So it could be I'm doing a purification ritual using water to wash something away so that I can open. Could be I'm doing an appreciation ritual down at the river. I live near the Rio Grande. Could be I'm in the hot springs. So we've got natural hot springs just 7 miles from where I live. Releasing something, making way for something new. And I would put that in the bowl. And my last marker is green, representing north and earth. Green for growth. So it could be a garden ritual, like I just talked about, that I do. Could be that I'm up in the mountains with my tobacco pouch, honoring earth for all the beauty that's being shared with me, for the way that those beautiful forms, the abundance of forms, the diversity of forms, opens my heart over and over and over again. And when I get to 4, when all the colors of the elements and the directions are in the bowl, then I'm ready to empty it and start again. Helps to keep me mindful. Helps to keep me alive. In a way, it helps to keep me honest. Because I'll see that bowl. I haven't said prayers to air lately. Or I haven't honored water lately. It's time that I come up with something for that. So it also helps to keep me balanced. But the perspective is not just on me and my immediate concerns or my wants. It enlarges it again. That's one of the beauties of working with the circle and the elements and the directions. We can ally with them so that they enlarge us. Well, Human Spirit Radio, as I'm sure you know, has many different offerings. These occur on Friday afternoons at 2 o'clock. On the first Friday of each month is Maria West, and she is just so snappy. That woman has so much spunk and sass. It's really enlivening to listen to her broadcasts. Her show's entitled Waking the Gods and Goddesses, Embodying Divine Wisdom and the Sensual Life. Currently, she's discussing Facing the Darkness, the Totality of Human Experience. Boy, big topic. My show, The Seven Sacred Directions, is offered on the second Tuesday of, that should be second Friday of each month at 2 o'clock. Next month's broadcast will be on honoring Mother Earth. So that's going to be a powerful one. I'm just beginning out of a retreat with a Peruvian shaman, residential retreat, so I'm sure I'll be bringing back some good energy, maybe some good stories for you. The third Friday of each month is Sarah McCroskey. She's the founder of Human Spirit Radio Network. A luminous soul, an energy worker, a healer, a visionary, a woman of many talents and great wisdom. Her topic this month, that's going to be on April 18th, is community and acupuncture. Fourth Friday of each month is Amanda Eloise Johnson, one of my favorites. Her show is The Conscious Evolution of Divine Feminine Archetypes. But her show is directed towards any gender, not just confined to the women. She has a lot of good things to say, a lot of interesting guests. So I appreciate you being with us this month. Again, all of these shows are archived. You can find them on Human Spirit Radio Network. You can access my videos on jaycross.com. So glad you joined us. Goodbye.